Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIcke.com.
There's already been an enormous amount of interest in this. Got to mention straight up that Chris Seeley from dataclinic.co.uk, one of our sponsors and a friend of mine, sent me a link today to a story on the Manchester Evening News website. And the headline in the story was as follows: the Lowry Hotel cancels appearance by Holocaust denier David Icke. That was the headline. I'll read it again. The Lowry Hotel cancels appearance by Holocaust denier David Icke. Now, ITV.com ran the same story. They basically lifted it from the Manchester Evening News. Now, the Lowry said they weren't fully aware of David's views and had cancelled the event. We've been mentioning that. To launch David's forthcoming book, 3 events have been commissioned. 2, one in Manchester, 1 in Liverpool. Excuse me, let's get this right. 1 in London, 1 in Manchester, 1 in Edinburgh. The Lowry event would have been the Manchester book launch event. Apparently, there was a Twitter campaign run by the Northwest Friends of Israel. A guy called Rafi Bloom was quoted. He's the co-chair of Northwest Friends of Israel, the UK's largest pro-Israel grassroots organisation. At least they claim that anyway. So I contacted him, invited him on. He said no, despite my assurances that he would be afforded every courtesy and as much time as he wanted to express himself. He chose not to, saying he didn't engage with Holocaust deniers. Libel doesn't mean anything to these guys. I'll be telling you more about this group a little bit later on. Now, realising that they had massive libel exposure, and they did, believe me, I'm an expert. I'm not an expert in very much, but I can quote you libel law back to front as it pertains to the UK, Ireland and the EU. I've had to know it inside out, and I've been sent on several courses over the years like many other journalists. I know libel law, massive exposure for ITV and for the Manchester Evening News, so they deleted the story. You see, they made a grievous error of judgment, not only by printing a libelous story, but even more sickening, and I talk about this a lot in the monologues over the last couple of years. None of them contacted David or anybody connected with David to get a comment. Where did these journalists get their education? Where did they go to school? You would wonder. Now, I later learned from David that a venue in Liverpool booked to host an event next year, an evening event, a speaking event, has also been cancelled. What's going on? Let's ask the man himself, David Icke. Welcome back to our programme. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, Richie, full enough.
Busy old day. None of this, of course, is new to you, and I'm always coming at these stories, and I'm well aware of the fact that you've been on the road for 25 plus years, and these things happen all the time. What have you made of what happened today, but the way in which it happened?
Well, on one level, it's typical for reasons I'll come to and in ways I'll come to. But in another way, it's very encouraging. You see, I started this world speaking tour in June last year and went all over the world. And, you know, I had some of this stuff years and years ago, all of it manufactured. And then I was left alone. I was left alone for a long time. There was none of this. There was no problems with venues or anything. But what's happened in the last year is the interest in what I'm doing, the interest in what I'm saying has grown enormously. And world events have more and more persuaded people that maybe they need to look at the world in a different way, because maybe what they thought was happening isn't actually what's happening. Now, this combination has clearly got a lot of people worried. And so all this stuff has started again. Of course, I've had it in Germany. I have 14 venues pulled in Germany because they were approached in the same way and went through the process of intimidation and fell for it. And also, I've had a venue pull in Canada for August, which we've now sorted out somewhere else. And it's encouraging in that way. Because, I mean, let's look at this, Rich. I'm sitting here, right? One guy, I'm supposed to be mad and not to be taken seriously. And what I'm saying is supposed to be crazy. I'm sitting in my tiny little office where I spend most of my life on the Isle of Wight. And from here, we've got all these people running around in different parts of the world with their knickers in a twist. Oh, stop him, stop him. And it really, if they really understood the scale of indifference I have towards them, they would be shocked, because obviously this mentality has an extraordinary level of self-importance, of me, of only I count. And therefore, we have an organization here, this Northwest Friends of Israel, not Friends of Humanity, note, Friends of Israel. And according to their story, this organization was inspired to be created by the anti-Israel and anti-Semitic action targeting Kedem, which was a Jewish-owned shop in Manchester selling Israeli beauty products. The shop was targeted by several groups of protesters who wanted to prevent the shop from trading for no other reason than it was selling products sourced by Israel. The scale of cognitive dissonance, the scale of self-deceit and self-delusion that it takes to head up an organization that says it was created because of efforts to stop a Jewish person going about their business in a lawful, legal way, to then run around trying to silence not just me, but anyone who has a different opinion on what they're saying about the Israeli regime. The scale of hypocrisy is off the Richter scale. And it also says the group has been set up as a place to bring pro-Israel activists together and as a tool to coordinate activity in support of and to advocate for Israel, fight the boycott campaign, and expose anti-Semitism. Now, the arrogance that it takes, and once again, the extraordinary levels of self-delusion and self-deceit, to set up an organization to push for something in regard to Israel, to advocate support for Israel, to try to stop a boycott of Israel. That, on one level, is what you think you have the right to do, which, fair enough, you do. I'm not saying ban the Northwest Friends of Israel, but to do that and then think that it's right to try to silence someone else with a different view to you. I mean, who do these people think they are? That they can say what they like, do what they like, advocate what they like, and at the same time seek to silence other opinion. You know, there's a word for that. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. When people who were seeking to expose the Nazis for what they are and what they were as they were coming to power, their meetings were destroyed. Their books were burned. You see, people all over the world and in all these different belief systems, they think that they're different to what they oppose when they act in the same way.
They're the same.
Now, the sequence of how easy this is, and this is a good thing. It's a good thing because, you see, what is happening in terms of people being silenced is so unbelievably outrageous, so incredibly unbelievable, that the general public, even people that are kind of in this arena a bit, they won't realize how easy it is to silence someone. And therefore, they won't realize that what we call freedom of speech is an illusion. It's not something that is being threatened. It's something that's being deleted. See, the venue in Canada, we booked in April. It was the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Contracts were signed, and it was all agreed. They put the event on their website. And last week, as we are heading into August from April, with almost all of the tickets gone, one letter to the venue complaining that I was being allowed to speak, a government-owned venue, by the way, that holds G20 summits, and they pulled it. They pulled it because they feared a public backlash. Well, they didn't fear it when they're holding G20 summits, of course. And we're not allowed to know who sent the letter. We're not allowed to know what's in the letter, and therefore respond to it. That is how easy it is. And it's all based on a simple word, gutlessness. It's a cocktail of gutlessness. First of all, you have the gutless people who seek to stop freedom of expression. We've seen how gutless they are twice now, because they won't come on and be interviewed by you and debate with me.
They were given every assurance they would be treated with the utmost courtesy and respect. Yeah.
What they do is they throw mud and basically run.
Run and hide, yeah.
They don't want to stand up for their libel and their lies, because they can't. So therefore they throw mud, they hope, and they know some of it will stick. And they get their way, another glorious victory for censorship and more freedom being deleted from an ever freedom deleted world. And now let's go for a pint and celebrate, shall we?
Can I ask a very quick question on that, just before you continue on? A very quick question. Listeners are screaming this at me, and I'm thinking it anyway. Who's worse then? The venues, because the Lowry.
Oh, I'm coming to that, Rich. That's where I'm coming.
Yeah, okay, go
That's
ahead.
That's where I'm coming with my cocktail of gutlessness. You see, so you've got the gutless people that contact the venues, but gutless bully boys that contact the venues cannot prevail without the gutlessness of the venue. So obviously Canada, this venue in Canada, has had one letter and pulled. That is gutlessness on a scale that I find beyond comprehension. And then you look at the Lowry. The Lowry, just on the say-so of these people, because one of the things they are is organized. So they have their organized protest in a way that it seems there's vast numbers of people when there's not. But then again, one letter can do it in Canada. They don't need to be that organized. And so the Lowry and the Gladstone Theatre in the Wirral, by the way, near Liverpool, both received nonsense from these bully boys, and then pulled the event
with no consultation.
Hey, Mr. Icke, we're having these people say you're going to say this. Are you going to say it? And of course, the answer would be, well, of course not. I spoke for 10 hours in Manchester early in this year, when another group of bully boys and gutless people, they also approached that venue to have it stopped because of all the things I was going to say. I spoke for 10 hours. I didn't say any of them. I never was going to. And still, a hotel in Manchester pulls on the say-so of these people. So I would say this: what are people going to do about it? Okay, are they just going to accept it Because if they are, don't complain about freedom of speech disappearing. Just don't do it because you're kidding yourself. Here is a hotel, the Lowry Hotel, very well-known hotel in Manchester. I do know that people who do a lot of business with that hotel are very likely to pull that business as a result of this because they're disgusted. We've got the Gladstone Theatre in the Wirral, who's done the same. Are we just going to say, okay, it's terrible, what's on the telly? Or are there going to be some protests about this? Are there going to be some boycotts organised of the Lowry Hotel so that they can have some understanding that there's two sides to this story and there's two sides to freedom of speech, not just the one? So it's this gutlessness that is at the heart of it. And there's another thing as well, which is kind of an offshoot of gutlessness, and that's the need to virtue signal. This is a big disease now. People don't follow what I'm saying about that. They haven't come across the phrase. Someone contacts a venue, say a hotel, and they say, oh, this man's going to say all this. He's a racist. He's this, that, the other. And the virtual signal from the venue says, oh no, we can't have that. Oh no. We're not having him here saying that. We're nice people, we're kind people and all that stuff, all virtue signaling. Instead of having some frickin' backbone and saying, hold on a second, I'm going to get the other side of the story here. And the other very encouraging thing, Richie, is that there is obvious coordination going on now, because the script that these venues in Germany and Canada and now in Britain are being given is basically off the same sheet. This organisation, similar in Ireland as well. What they've come up with is this phrase: "What can we do? What's a phrase that we can use that can most discredit him? Let's call him a Holocaust denier. Let's call him that." So suddenly. Even in the days when these people were having a go at me years ago and trying to silence me, they succeeded there, didn't they? They never used that phrase because they couldn't, because I've never said that. And now they're using it. And you know what it is? That's desperation.
Yeah.
It's desperation because they have thrown so much at me. They've thrown ridicule, they've thrown abuse, they've thrown lies for the best part of 30 years. And here I am sitting here, stronger than ever before, listened to by more people than ever before, my books read by more people than ever before, and they're getting desperate. And I feel sorry for them, I really do, because if that's all they've got in their armory, if that's all they've got in their lives to try to silence the opinions of others, and not least by misrepresenting them, then I feel sorry for them, because to wake up every morning and remember they're still them can't be easy. And we should ask them questions about why they have so much influence in silencing people. We should ask why a country like Israel, with about 6 million Jewish people in a population of about 8 million, has so much power on the world stage. It's less than the size of frickin' London. Why? You see, and these are the questions that lead to big answers that this anti-Semitic, which is, of course, a misnomer, the biggest Semitic race on earth is the Arabic race. But it's these big answers that come from these questions that all this stuff is trying to silence. It's fear. It's fear of having an open debate because of the scale of what Israel and the people that run it have to hide. And so what they do is they go around intimidating people into silence, so those questions are never asked. I can tell you now, what do you call yourselves? Northwest Friends of Israel? the day I will be silenced will be the day I leave this world, and not 1 second before. So do your worst. It ain't going to make any difference ultimately, because not only will you not silence me, I will just shout louder, more vigorously than before. So have a nice day.
I'm going to take a really quick break, and then when we come back from that, we'll have David up to the top of the hour. David Icke is our guest. Stories ran in the Manchester Evening News today, covered as well by ITV.com, labelling David as a Holocaust denier and saying that the Lowry Hotel had cancelled the forthcoming book launch event that David had booked there this coming November. They quickly deleted those stories, and again, I can tell you categorically, never claim to be an expert in anything, because I'm not. This is my domain. You know, I know this stuff inside and out. The exposure was huge, so they deleted the articles. We're going to talk more about this and the sorts of people. We'll talk a little bit about Jeremy Corbyn as well. I want to bring this up, David, just after we take the break, because I did mention to you today, I wonder the acquiescence to the Labour Friends of Israel and the Conservative Friends of Israel when Ken Livingstone was talking about things that, you know, have been documented historically, and he was thrown under a bus. George Galloway said as much on the programme a few weeks back. We'll take that very quick break. We'll pick this up with David Icke in a minute. Do bookmark davidicke.com/headlines, by the way. This is your Richie Allen Show. Back in a minute.
Is your mind full of ideas, yet you struggle to put them down on paper? Characters with no home, unfinished concepts that you always wanted to finalise, yet lacked knowledge and drive to complete? The Creative Writing course from Creative Imagings may be the long-awaited answer, designed to help you finish your masterpiece with better language techniques, detailed study of the character, plotted suspense chain, and valuable information to get published. Don't delay your creation. Sign up today. Email Sue on nassasproductions@gmail.com.
Have you lost access to important data from a computer hard drive, mobile phone, or other storage device? Maybe you have a broken hard drive containing years of information, or a smartphone that no longer works from which you'd like the pictures, movies, and chats recovered. If you would like to recover data from any type of digital device, including desktop and laptop computers, external hard drives, cameras, smartphones, NAS and RAID servers, then contact Data Clinic today at dataclinic.co.uk now.
Introducing the H2O app, a powerful water structuring application that programs vibrational energies into water through the use of different sound frequencies. Once programmed, the use of water for drinking, cooking, bathing. Give it to your friends and colleagues or spread it around the garden. The list goes on. It's not just water that the app can be used for either. It's great for programming crystals too. The H2O app is free to download and is available on both Android and Apple platforms. For further information, go to h2oapp.online.
Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with davidicke.com.
Welcome back to the programme, 25 past the hour. David Icke is our guest and will be with me right until the top of this hour. Gilad Atzmon, the jazz saxophonist, and former BBC journalist Tony Gosling are very interested in this and will join me in the second hour. They've been affected by this themselves. David, a number of listeners, whenever this comes up, say to me, Richie, you know David fairly well. Why doesn't David go after these people legally? This is a question, of course, that's coming through on Twitter. Famously, when I say famously, infamously, back in 2014, a national newspaper published a horrendous story making ridiculous allegations about you. And you will remember that a senior partner at one of the most senior libel firms in the country contacted me and basically begged me to ask David to sign up to going after the national newspaper, which was the Daily Mirror at the time. And David, typically of David, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, mate, but you laughed it off and said, you know, ridiculous and horrible things have been said about me for over 20 years. I'm not going to get my, you know, kilt, as it were. You didn't say it like that, but I'm not going to get into a twist over it. Listeners are saying, why don't you bury these people? They've clearly libelled you.
Well, it's an interesting question, but you see, I'm not here to defend myself. I'm not here to defend my reputation. This is a big mistake that I think people make. This is my view. If you seek to have a reputation, what you're saying is the way people see me defines my self-identity, defines me. I want people to see me in a certain light. I don't even go there. I'm not interested in reputation. I'm interested in information. And people with intelligence, true intelligence, will see the information and they'll take it in a certain light. Other people will reject it. They'll abuse me. They'll ridicule me, and they'll do all that. And fair enough, be my guest. But I'm not hooked up on how do people see me. So I have to go to court to show this person is telling lies about me. I know they're telling lies about me, and that's good enough for me. And if people are not A, intelligent enough, and B, committed enough and self-respectful enough to actually check things out and not accept things on face value, well, they'll just have to believe what they like. And there's another thing, you see. What I've done for the last nearly 30 years is not defend myself. I've just kept walking. I've just kept putting out more research, more information, more research, more information, deeper in the rabbit hole, deeper in the rabbit hole. And I'm going to go on doing that, like I say, until the day I leave this reality. Now, getting myself involved in court cases, trying to show that these people are lying about me, would completely scupper that, in the sense of it would take my focus away. Yeah. So I'm not interested because I don't care. See, this is the point. When I say I don't care what people say about me, I mean it. The reason I challenge these people is not because of the lies they tell. I mean, they're pathetic people. I mean, they're obviously going to speak pathetic things. It's because of the attack on freedom of expression. That's why I challenge them. But the way to do that is not to get yourself caught up in litigation for years, but to do it with information. And to ask these questions. What is it about me, just one bloke, that all these people in different parts of the world now are desperate to silence? What they're desperate to silence is me pointing out things across a great swathe of things, not just involved in Zionism, which the system which they represent and defend don't want people to hear. So my contribution must be, if that's what they are terrified of me doing, I should do it more, and I should do it more vigorously, not go running after them. They're pathetic. What do I care what they think? And then you see, you mentioned journalism. We've got this Emily Newton writing for the Manchester Evening News, a story repeated by ITV News on their website. I've been dealing with mainstream journalists. I've been dealing with them in what I'm doing now for nearly 3 decades, but I was in the mainstream journalistic profession for a long time with the BBC and newspapers and stuff. You do not have to be intelligent to be a journalist. In fact, it's a very bad career move. You don't have to know what you're talking about, and you don't even have to know how to do your job properly. Like getting both sides and stuff like
phoning
that.
you, exactly, yeah.
So we're back to this in terms of journalists, actually these two descriptions apply also to the venues. We're back to gutlessness and ignorance. Ignorance in the sense that they have not got a clue what I'm saying and what I'm writing. They got this story from what these bully boys told them and just repeated it. Because as I've been saying for years, that's what journalists are mostly, with honourable exceptions. They are repeaters. They just repeat. They repeat the official version of everything. They've repeated today what these people have said, without question. And put it in the headline, Holocaust denier David Icke and all that stuff. But it also comes down, in terms of journalism, to gutlessness. And that means taking the least line of resistance. You see, it's much easier to go with the bullies, because then you won't be bullied and you won't be attacked, than to actually stand up for freedom of expression and say, well, hold on a second. If you've got a right to your opinion, why hasn't he got a right to his? You know, one of the things I was talking about in this week's videocast, which is on the website, was about the BDS, the Israel Boycott Organization in Austria, who had a venue cancel with the same sequence of events. And people at the hotel were saying that they were told that if they didn't cancel, there would be a boycott of the hotel, but also that they would they were also anti-Semitic if they allowed it to happen. So, you know, people get intimidated by this and go for the least line of resistance. If it's a journalist, you just repeat the nonsense without question, and if you're a venue, you cancel the event. So this is how easy it is. Now,
it's blackmail, David. This is criminal behavior. To blackmail people is criminal behavior.
The police should be called in, Rich, but
Absolutely.
they're not, because people are intimidated from doing that. But the thing I was going to say, just to finish this off, about journalists is I've dealt with these people for decades. You know, so I don't take journalists any more seriously than the bully boys, because with honourable exceptions, they are ignorant of the world, and they have the arrogance of ignorance because they think they're journalists. They would know if certain things were happening when they're absolutely clueless. And they have no guts to stand up for freedom of expression. Ironically, their freedom of expression is coming more and more under challenge as well. And you know, if we don't stand up for something, not least freedom of speech, we lose it. Which is why I say, you know, are people just going to sit by and allow this to happen? Or are they peacefully going to challenge what's happened with this Lowry Hotel and let them see that actually there's another side to the story which they haven't had the decency to look at, and just listen to the bullies? Because if we don't start challenging this, if we don't start standing up to this alleged intimidation, crikey, intimidation, blimey, it's a fly off an elephant's back to me, these people. But if we don't, then it goes. And you know the greatest form of censorship and the most insidious form of censorship, the most destructive form, it's self-censorship. And if people allow themselves to be intimidated by these people, then self-censorship will delete freedom and freedom of expression without even the authorities getting involved.
Let's get into
this is
that
what
then.
They want. We must not fall for it. Come on.
Let's get into that, because I mentioned today Jeremy Corbyn has been a vehement critic of Zionism and Israeli policy towards Palestinians for probably 40, 50 years, probably, outside of the time even before he came to Parliament. And he was criticised for that when he was a backbencher, but he was a very outspoken critic of Zionism and of the racist policies of the Israeli governments since forever, since Israel came to be. What happened then late last year and earlier this year? I mentioned George Galloway was on the programme a couple of times. The first time some months back, when just before the election, and he expressed great dismay at the way the accusations of anti-Semitism made by groups like the Labour Friends of Israel and the Conservative Friends of Israel hadn't been taken on by Jeremy Corbyn in a way that you would expect him to do so. How serious was his inability or unwillingness to take on these lobbies at that time? Is there going to be a legacy, David, because he didn't take them on?
Well, it's typical. It's typical of the way things are. See, instead of Jeremy Corbyn standing up and saying, well, hold on a second, Never mind, anti-Semitic this, anti-Semitic that, which is a misuse of the word anyway. Like I say, because Semitic is a language group of a group of languages in the Middle East. The overwhelming vast majority of them are Arabic languages. But instead of standing up and saying, you accuse us as racism, hold on, we are simply highlighting the outrageous behavior of the Israeli regime in relation to a basically defenseless people. And by the way, this Northwest Friends of Israel apparently supported all the bombing of the innocent in Palestine the last time around in 2014. So you see, you can call for someone to be bombed. You can call for innocent civilians to be bombed and punch the air, and you have the right to speak. You challenge that violence. You talk about needing to love each other and being peaceful with each other, and you are somehow some dangerous person that has to be silenced. We live in an incredibly inverted world. And Jeremy Corbyn had a wonderful opportunity there to say this, to say, hold on, there's another side of this. We now have a situation where the definition of anti-Semitism has been changed to basically encompass criticism of Israel and Zionism. This French president, the narcissist extraordinaire, Emmanuel Macron, standing next to Netanyahu the other day, actually said that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. What they're doing is squeezing and squeezing and squeezing what you can say in relation to the regime in Israel to silence people asking legitimate questions. This is what it's all about. Nothing to do with racism. It's about silencing questions and silencing criticism. And there, Jeremy Corbyn had a wonderful platform, and he blew it. Instead, he turns against his own
friend,
party member, Livingston.
Yeah.
This is the question that's never asked. I'm not saying whether what Livingston said was true or not, but this is the question that's never asked. In any of this, it's not asked by venues, it's not asked by these bully boys, and it's not asked by journalists. Is it true? Is what is being said true? That's got to surely be the criteria for everything. But instead, if you criticize the Israeli regime in any way, shape, or form, you are a racist. This is a defense mechanism to stop the truth coming out. And I do thank the Northwest Friends of Israel for and their other parts of their British and global network for, again, highlighting the nature of what's going on and the silencing of alternative opinion. And, I'm saying that we're all one consciousness having different experiences. And the body is not just irrelevant in the sense of who we are, what I call phantom self, the body and our sense of label self. I'm actually saying, if you look at quantum physics, that actually the physical body doesn't actually exist. It's a holographic illusion. And I quote in my talks from a description of atoms which are supposed to make the body up. And this quote goes like this: if the nucleus were the size of the atom, was the size of a peanut, the atom would be about the size of a baseball stadium. If we lost all the dead space inside our atoms, we would each be able to fit into a particle of dust. That's the human body. And the entire human race would fit into the volume of a sugar cube. And I use that quote to make the point of how ludicrous and ridiculous racism is. I'm the one that's saying we're all one. Now, who is obsessed with race? Who self-identifies with their race to the core of their being? The people trying to stop me speaking. So who is the racist? Who is obsessed with race, and who says it's a nonsense? We should forget about that and look at the person, not the garment of what we call the body or the color or the background. Look at what they do. Look at what they say, and make judgments on that, not the background. Don't let that influence you. So who is the racist? Because it's not me. Well, that actually only leaves one other group, and this is again the inversion, where people obsessed with race, completely self-identifying with race, then shout racism at everyone else, whilst defending a state which is quite blatantly, under any criteria, an apartheid state in which one racial group dominates the other on racial grounds. That is apartheid. That is racism. And if the Friends of Israel in the Northwest, or any one of these other brain-doning groups, think they're going to silence me from pointing that out, well, you've got a long wait, I'll tell you that.
You know, Norman Finkelstein said to me years ago that the idea of this Friends of Israel, I think I've got the clip somewhere, not today, but I'll dig it out and play it in the future. Norman said it makes them laugh, this idea, the Friends of Israel. He said, who would want to be friends with, a state like Israel? And then he said, but everybody has friends, he said. And I remember he said to me, real friends don't tolerate your behaviour when your behaviour is outrageous, when it's scandalous, and in the case of Israel, when it is racist. Real friends will pull you into line. So he said the United Kingdom, he said, and the Republic of Ireland and America are no friends of Israel when they condone what it is that Israel does. David Icke is our guest. I want to bring it on to this. We've got about 10 or 12 minutes left. I want to move it on then to the proposals that you've talked a lot about over the years, and especially recently, by the current government in this country to police so-called hate speech on the internet, because, to use your phrase, the phrase you coined, dot connector, connect the dots there. This is all obviously linked in to what's going on. So the proposals that we will delete people offline, we will prosecute people for so-called hate speech. And again, I've looked at this very closely, as you have, and a lot of this is lobbying from groups like the groups we've mentioned already. How serious is this?
Well, obviously, it's potentially devastating for freedom of speech. And we're back to what I was talking about earlier, about the way that the definitions are being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed to limit ever more profoundly what people can say. You see, because what they do with this legislation of all kinds is they'll use a phrase, they'll define a phrase, say hate speech, say fake news. And I say they'll define it, actually they don't. They use it, hate speech. Well, what does that mean? And fake news, well, okay, what does that mean? Because they are very subjective. I mean, there are some open and shut ones in terms of fake news. People make stories up and it can be shown to have done so, etc. But the point of these phrases is to not define them legally, so that you can constantly redefine them and encompass more and more things that people say under that definition of hate speech or fake news. And those two things are completely connected, because it's all about silencing all flow of information, whether verbal, written, or whatever, that challenges the official version of everything. And this is what we're facing. And this is why I say, it's no good saying it's terrible and then putting the kettle on. We're looking us in the eye now, and we have to call these people out. We have to make them realize that there are potential financial consequences and public relations consequences for what they do. Because if we don't, then we're making it so easy for the bullies just to lie about someone and have their, not only their freedom of speech denied, but the freedom, this is the key thing, the freedom of people to hear, who choose to hear. I mean, do these people care about the people who've got tickets to come to that Manchester event and that Liverpool event? They couldn't give a damn. What about the people in Canada? Well, nearly all the tickets have gone. People have booked hotels, some have booked flights, and they just cancel it like that. They don't care about anyone else. You know, this is where they're coming from. It's all about them. They're narcissistic bullies. So we've got to look them in the eye, not to have a fight, but to say we're not having this. And there are consequences financially and in terms of public relations for your organizations if you abuse freedom of speech and you abuse your potential audience in the way that you are doing it. And, you know, when we're talking about hate, have you seen the hatred in the way these people condemn others and libel others and hurl abuse at others? The hatred in their face. It's extraordinary.
Some of
I
these,
don't hate them. I feel sorry for them.
It's a good point you're making here, because some of these groups, of these groups have been caught red-handed doctoring photographs and making statements about people that are patently untrue. And in a later exchange with the Northwest Friends of Israel today, you know, I condemned them roundly for not providing a spokesman or a spokeswoman to come on the programme tonight. I pointed out that they've got some very unsalubrious people in their organisation, you know, people who've behaved thuggishly in the past, people who've been struck off for mendacious and corrupt behaviour while employed as a barrister, awful people. You see, I was angry today, and I'm not one to be, you know, it's not affected me directly, it's affected you and your team. I was angry. I was more angry with the Lowry originally and the two so-called journalistic organisations for not saying, well, we'll have a look into it and we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. No, we'll just ban, we'll stop straight away, as you pointed out. They're dreadful, these people. One of the things that you made a point earlier on of them not being numerous. They're not. And this is another very frustrating thing. I mean, we had this back in January when I contacted the so-called campaign against anti-Semitism. They were trying to get the Apollo to cancel your sold-out event there. Thankfully, the Apollo told them to take a running jump, and the event went ahead for 10, 11 hours. It was a huge success. People were very happy with what they heard. They were challenged. They went away. They're not very many, these groups, David. They're not. They don't have an awful lot of support in terms of feet on the ground, so they don't. I don't think so.
No, they don't. But we're back to this word. It's the gutlessness that allows the bullies to prevail. It's gutlessness that allows all bullies to prevail. Bullies are cowards. So you've got to be gutless in the face of a bully to actually bow down to a coward. And you know what they're trying to hide is something that people absolutely need to know about. And I'll give you an example here. The Jewish population of America is about 1.7%. The vast overwhelming majority of those people will not support what's going on. There are, of course, a significant number of Jewish people that vehemently oppose what's going on in Israel. So you're actually talking about a very small group that is actually trying to silence others and trying to manipulate. And from that small group, within a relatively small group in America, we have today the Trump Treasury Secretary is Steve Mnuchin, who's a Zionist. The head of the White House Economic Council, the chief advisor on economics to Trump, is Gary Cohn. He's a Zionist, former head of Goldman Sachs or CEO of Goldman Sachs. Before Mnuchin came in, Trump had an acting Treasury Secretary. His name was Adam Zibin, who's a Zionist. If we go to Obama, the previous administration, we're talking Democrat now, the Treasury Secretary was Timothy Geithner, Zionist. When he stood down, there was an acting Treasury Secretary. It was Neil S. Wolin, Zionist. Then a new Treasury Secretary came in, Jack Lew, Zionist. We had, under Bill Clinton, a Treasury Secretary called Lawrence Summers, Zionist, and then one called Robert Rubin in the Clinton administration, Zionist. Summers became then director of Obama's Economic Council when Geithner was the Treasury Secretary. If we then look at the some other people in the Obama administration in key positions, we had Peter Orszag, Zionist, director of the Office of Management and Budget, overseeing the whole budget of the government. Jared Bernstein, chief economist and economic policy advisor to Vice President Joe Biden, Zionist. Mary Shapiro, who was chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, supposed to be the policing of Wall Street, Zionist. Gary Gensler, who was the chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, Zionist. Sheila Bair, chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Zionist. And Karen Mills, head of the Small Businesses Administration, who was a Zionist. That's all in the Obama administration. Now, if we move then to the Federal Reserve, which basically runs the American economy, for a long time under Reagan Bush and then Father Bush, and then right into across Clinton and into the Boy Bush administration, the head of the Federal Reserve was Alan Greenspan, a Zionist. He was then replaced by Ben Bernanke, Zionist, during the Bush administration, the second Bush. And Bernanke's deputy at the Fed was Janet Yellen, Zionist. When Bernanke left, the current head of the Federal Reserve is Janet Yellen, who's a Zionist, and her deputy is Stanley Fischer, Zionist, who has dual Israeli citizenship and was for a long time governor of the Bank of Israel. Now, whether those people are Zionists or whether they're Chinese or whether they're Irish or whether they are African American, the number of people from the same group in positions of key, not least economic power, that completely runs America, the Treasury Department, the director of the White House Economic Council, the head of the Federal Reserve. The question should be asked, what if they were Chinese or Russian or whatever? Why do we have this concentration of power from one group? Why? These are legitimate questions. And you know who would be shouting loudest if that was the case? The Israelis.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's, it's not just dual citizenship, it's dual value systems where what is right for one is not right for another. What I'm calling for is for everyone to be treated the same, to everyone be treated with the same respect, irrespective of race, of background, of religion, and people be looked at not by that and those labels, irrelevant labels, but by what they do and what they say and how they behave to each other. So these are just some of the background that this desperation, and it is desperation now, to silence people questioning this and highlighting this. These are just some of the things that censorship is all about. And shouldn't we be asking those questions and looking at the world and saying, actually, what is going on?
Just before that's, I can't add to that. Why should I? First of all, add to it. It's you being targeted today and many other days. Thanks for talking about that today. I appreciate that. I know you're up to your eyes. You've just put to bed the book. I know proofreading is nearly done, and then it's off to the printers.
Yeah, so at the end of the week. And I tell you what, you people at the Northwest Friends of Israel, watch for the book. You'll love it.
Do you know, I did. You see, you've never been glib and you've never been childish. But I'm not as mature or as wise as you, and I am a bit childish. I took great pleasure in telling these people today that venues were being secured, alternative venues, and that, you know, for you and for your team, life just goes on, that it's not even a fly in the ointment, you know, these people. And they're just one, you know, the latest in a long, long line of people who've been trying to shut you up for years.
And people should just ask this question.
Why? Yeah.
Why are they trying to shut me up? Because I tell you what, it's not just that I challenge the regime in Israel. That's a very, very small part of what I do. It's a lot of the other stuff. Because even these people who think they're so great, they're just pawns. They're pawns in a game they don't understand. And one day they will, maybe, and they'll look in the mirror and, well, they'll think what complete idiots they've been. But I'm not holding my breath, because it ain't going to be now.
Fair play to you for your can I say magnanimity? Can I say that for your magnanimous attitude to this? Not now, but every other time that you've been inconvenienced by this sort of nonsense. It's deadly serious. Yeah,
just let me say this, mate. You know, what's his name? Rafi Bloom?
Rafi Bloom, yeah, Rafi Bloom.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
And all these people. Hey, you know, you may call yourself Jewish. I don't call myself English. I don't self-identify with the body. I'm consciousness. The body's just an experience. But you're the same consciousness, Rafi, that I am. You're just having a different experience. And why don't we just realize that race is just an illusion? It's just a different experience. And stop trying to impose your experience on everyone else. Because I have no hatred for you. I have no animosity for you. I challenge your arrogant destruction of freedom of speech, or attempt to, but I have no animosity to you. So why do you for me? Why do you for so many other people? Why don't you just go and find that mirror and have a word with it? You might learn something about yourself that you actually need to look at. And you'll probably have a nicer life, realizing that we're all one. And let the war end, because it can't be good for you.
It's a brilliant way to leave it, mate. Thanks so much for doing that. Go to davidicke.com/headlines, folks. On davidicke.com as well, details of the ongoing Worldwide Wake Up Tour, new events next year, and those events to mark the launch of David's book coming in the autumn. Cheers, mate. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Cheers, Rich.
Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. David Icke there, live from his home on the Isle of Wight. It's exactly the top of the hour. 8 p.m. for Tuesday, July 25th, 2017. My name is Richie Allen. If you're just joining the programme, you've missed David Icke. The podcast of the show, as always, is uploaded around about 15 minutes after the end of the live programme. We're going to continue along this theme, by the way, because Gilad Atzmon, the terrific jazz saxophonist, the artist, the author, and great journalist Tony Gosling, whom I've known for a long time, as well, former BBC journalist, now makes the excellent politics show for BC FM in Bristol every week. They're going to join me shortly, and we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be expanding on some of the things that David and I were speaking about there. What's all this about? Well, the Lowry Hotel, very well known and prestigious hotel in the city, in Salford, I should say, really, has cancelled David's scheduled appearance there in November to promote his forthcoming book. The Manchester Evening News and ITV.com both ran with stories today which they subsequently deleted, libelous stories, claiming that Holocaust denier David Icke had been cancelled. They deleted those stories. Again, I have to keep saying this. I know sometimes, us Irish, we sometimes overstate the point, but I'm going to do it anyway. Massive exposure today, printing that sort of libelous garbage. So they took it down. The Northwest Friends of Israel. We'll rename them the Northwest Friends of an apartheid racist regime. They decided to Twitter target the Lowry without contacting anybody or without trying to find out what it is that David Icke talks about and what he says. The Lowry cancelled. Later on, the venue in the Gladstone Theatre, I think, in Liverpool, due to host David next year, they pulled as well. Sadly for these morons, and they are morons, and now I'm speaking for myself, not speaking for David. He isn't glib, he isn't childish, he isn't offensive, he doesn't insult. But I'm not as mature as him or as some of our listeners, so I'm not beyond calling these people what they are. They're morons. And I said to them today in the emails I sent them, pseudo-intellectuals. They don't have the intellectual capacity to come on a programme like this and debate me, let alone debate somebody like David Icke. So they hide behind, we don't debate Holocaust deniers. They've been challenged since time immemorial to provide the text, to provide the audio or the video, whereupon in the last 25, 30 years, David Icke has ever said the Holocaust never happened, or even implied it, which he's never done, or said anything like that Jews were not targeted by the disgusting and insane Nazi regime in Germany. It's never been said by David Icke or by anybody connected with him or by anybody connected with this programme either. See, these people are sick. They are sick. There are genuine racists out there, people who hate Jews for the sake of hating Jews. We know them. But these people don't go after them because those people are very useful. They're very useful to these people. The Ken O'Keefes of this world. Sickening, disgusting, narcissistic racists. Ken's latest is to call Janice Barcelo, he's now calling her Jew-niece Barcelo, because she's cottoned on to his racism and his pyramid schemes. So you have a genuine racist, and he's just one of them. And I said on the programme recently, I don't want to be, constantly naming him, but he's a handy one to name because of his recent behaviour. But the likes of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism and the Northwest Friends of Israel, they're not interested in going after people like Ken O'Keefe because people like Ken O'Keefe are very useful to them. So they target people with enormous audiences, increasingly enormous audiences, who are challenging the paradigm, challenging the mainstream version of events, and they try and irritate them by doing what they've done today and other days, but it never works. Venues are being secured, the events will go ahead, David will speak, the conversation will be enlightening, it will be educational, it will be fun, it will be interesting, and at no time will the conversation be racist, anti-Semitic, that great misnomer, or harmful towards anybody.